Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you so much for finding time to join us on this webinar today. My name is Martin, and I work as Education Support Manager here at ACCA. And I'm happy to be joined today by FM expert tutor Rashaad Hussain. Hi, Rashaad. So this session today is designed to support you with your financial management exam. And Rashaad is going to share his insights with you as you prepare for this exam, which is coming up in a few weeks. So today we are covering the recently released March-June 24 examiners report. We'll have a look at some technical examples from previous exams. We'll share some practical advice for tackling your upcoming exams, as well as some strategies to avoid, the common pitfalls and overall to improve your exam performance. We'll have a chance to respond to your questions, so please do put in your questions via the Q&A button early on in the webinar. And I'm joined by a few of my colleagues in the back end who will also be responding to those questions as we proceed. Now, before I hand over to Rashaad, I just want to share a few housekeeping items. So there are a number of buttons at the bottom of your screen that will help you in the course of this webinar. You'll see a help icon on the left, and that provides resources and information to help you resolve any technical issues that you might experience. You'll see some icons for the slides and the media player, so those are also available. There is an attendee chat function that enables you to engage with a fellow webinar attendees. Please note that chat is public, so do not share any personal information. There is also a resource list. You'll see an icon that looks like a file symbol, and that enables you to access all the resources that are relevant to today's webinar, including any direct links to the resources that we talk about. Feel free to rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows. And just in case you can't hear us or you can't see the presentation at any time, please do refresh your browser, and that should assist. So I'm going to hand over to Rashaad now. I'll be back with you towards the end of the session. And just a reminder, if you'd like any of your questions responded to, please do put those in through the Q&A button. And now over to you, Rashaad.
Hello. Thank you very much, Martin. Indeed, a very good morning, a very good afternoon, a very good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. We have attendees across the globe. Welcome you on board FM Financial Management Examiners Report Unlocked in Focus webinar series. Let's start by introducing myself. Myself, Rashaad Hussain, your expert tutor for FM. For more than a decade, I've been passionately training students like yourself to pass the financial management papers. When I'm not teaching, you'll find me as a CFO at FinScript Limited. I've been on a mission to guide and help students in conquering FM and AFM exams. Through my journey as a tutor, I've had the privilege of teaching over 100 financial management batches and also delivered numerous ACCA webinars and train the trainer workshop. Now, what are we doing today? It's on our agenda. Now, what are the things that we are looking into? We're going to kick off with the key insights, the March-June examiners report. You may or may not have seen these. Then we're going to look a little bit into the technical examples of the practical advice. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of the strategies to avoid common pitfalls. We'll wrap up the session with the Q&As. Technical example, practical advice, strategies, and wrapping up with the Q&A. Now, during the Q&A, as Martin said, we tend to get quite a lot of very similar questions. I'll try answering as many as possible. Just as we get started, let's get an idea about where you stand as far as examiner's report is concerned. Let's share you across a pool. poll from which we need to understand, have you read any of the examiner's report? Yes, no? Or you don't even know how to access them? Waiting for your response, and let's have your, you can click on the slide and give a submit button. Eagerly waiting to complete your vote, which is now on your screen. Let's move on with a countdown. Five, four, three, two, one, and there we move ahead. My goodness. That's a lot of candidates who've not been reading it at all and not been able to take it up seriously. And let's get started with the first item in the agenda, which is a key insight. And at the end of this session, you are probably supposed to understand how the examiner's report is going to help you. What is the examiner's report? What is it all about? What is the examiner's report? What is it all about? What do you know about examiner's report? Yeah, you could use the attendees chat, send across, let me know what you are going to get from the examiner's report. Hmm? Yes, yes, a lot of responses coming up in the chat box. The examiner's report is one of the most valuable ACCA resources. It's prepared by the examining team where they're going to tell us their observations from the marking process. It's prepared based on the most recent examination. And which examination are we looking into now? We're looking at the March, June 2024 examiner's report. And this examiner's report is supposed to be used along with the sample questions, which is available on your, ACCA practice platforms. What does the examiner's report contain? What are the parts of the examiner's report? What are the contents? So it's going to have an area of general comments, followed by, from section A, there are going to be 4 questions are discussed from section A. In section A, we in fact have an exam. We've got 15 questions. The 4 selected questions is discussed here. Further, the examiner's report is going to pick 1 OT case question, and as far as section C, the constructed response question is concerned, 2 constructed response questions are discussed. Now, from the most recent examiner's report, it's been noticed that many candidates have attempted it, but they haven't attempted it with giving, they have not given proper workings. Workings were not included. The workings did not have proper layout. Most of the calculations, they were just done in a cell. They've probably calculated in a calculator and entered it in the cell. The working is not given at all. So the most important part is doing working note. Maybe let's take with regard to depreciation. When you calculate the tax savings on depreciation, giving the right, what all things do you've got to disclose if it is as per the reducing balance method, giving the opening balance at each year, showing the depreciation of each year, and that each depreciation, how much tax savings is it going to cost each year. So being, presenting it in a very good layout is also important. So key insights or workings aren't given any due consideration. Working, especially, as far as the working capital working note is considered, showing the each incremental year on year incremental working capital and placing it at the right year with a good layout, it's necessary. And how do you do it with a good layout? So probably, as far as you can show your, you can show the working capital that is required, what is the incremental working capital, and finally, what is going to be the working capital cash flows. Many state the thing, many forget to link their answers, they forget to demonstrate their knowledge. Some have discussed areas that are not even required in the, they've discussed everything else, but what is required in the question, they've not reached to that point. So some of the discussions were such that they've discussed every area other than what is asked in the exam. If a question requires you, if a requirement is calculate equivalent annual cost for year 2 and year 3, the life of the project is 3 years, but the requirement is to calculate equivalent annual cost for year 2 and year 3 to decide whether we should replace in year 2 and year 3. We've seen candidates calculating equivalent cost even for year 1, which was not required at all. So when the things is not organized, sufficient practice is not there, many candidates underperformed because of the time pressure. Hmm? And lack of practice, lack of preparation is one of the major reasons why candidates end up saying that, yeah, we could not complete the exam. Candidates, they call me after exam stating that, uh, sir, I knew the last question, but we couldn't do it, we couldn't complete it. Uh, that shows a lack of preparation or lesser experience or lesser practice on the practice platforms. Now, to demonstrate, picking up a question, one of the section C questions, it went about like this, where what was requirement A? Calculate the above three ratios. What above three ratios? Interest cover, EPS, total gearing. Total gearing formula is given in the question. What is the formula? It's debt divided by debt plus equity using market value weights. Several times, the most commonly made mistake here was equity was taken but not at market value weights. Many of them did not even notice the formula given there. They just did debt divided by equity. The above three areas, the above three ratios for the next year, assuming that the project is financed by right issue of equity. So what focus we are giving here is about the third one. What is the third requirement? Using the calculations from 1 and 2. Calculations were very wonderfully done by candidates, and the only error that was committed was not taking market value of equity. But requirement 3 is where the candidates badly performed. Using calculations from 1 and 2, briefly comment on the results. When they were asked to comment, they have just commented, interest cover is increasing, interest cover is decreasing, EPS is increasing, EPS is decreasing. Just stating that whether it increased or decreased is not going to help you fetch marks. You've got to discuss about the impact, the result of it, result of EPS increase, result of interest cover increase. What are the result? So we've noticed that here, as far as the third requirement is concerned, comments just mentioned each ratio had gone up or down without stating if it was good or bad for the company. Result was not there. Now, so what are you supposed to do? What is the most important thing? EPS increased, good. Interest cover reduced with the issuance of debt. EPS increased, good. Interest cover bad. But what is the result? What is it going to happen? It is going to increase the financial risk. It is going to increase the gearing. You've got to mention that to fetch the marks. So what is it? They did not mention the resulting increase in financial risk and the rise in gearing. So this is what has to be mentioned, and this is where the candidates did not write, and the candidates fetch very poor mark as far as the third requirement, the easy fetching mark, the third requirement was concerned. Now, looking at some more technical examples, let's have a look at a question here. So what is the requirement? The one, the dark bold one. What is the buffer or the safety inventory. They're asking for the minimum inventory. In the following information relates to blank company inventory. Annual demand is 400,000. Order quantity 70,000. Reorder level 30,000. Lead time 3 weeks. Assuming 50 week in a year, you're supposed to calculate the minimum level of inventory. Yep. If you could do it really good, really fast, fine. You can put across your final option in the chat box. You can share it across in the attendee chat. The minimal level, the buffer inventory formula, what is it? It's reorder level. You reduce from the reorder level. What are you going to reduce? The average usage into average lead time. Now we've got a small problem here. Reorder level is there. The average lead time, I can consider 3 weeks as average lead time, but I don't have average usage. What will I do? I've got to find average usage. Now let me write average usage formula. The average usage formula is annual demand, what I consume in a year divided by the number of weeks a year. It's very clearly stated in the question that the average weeks is 50 weeks. It's not 52. That's one of the places where many candidates did mistake. They divided by 52 instead of 50. So here 400,000 divided by 50 gives me how much? It gives me 8,000 units. Now I've got average usage. This is one place where many couldn't get it through, could not get score. Now the buffer inventory is, what is it? 30,000 minus 8,000 into 3, which is going to give me 6,000, and that answer is option A, 6,000 units. Option A, 6,000 units. Now, the next question, of quite a wonderful one, which will load as a poll in the upcoming screen. The question is just about to be loaded on your screen. And the question goes like this. A company is planning a major investment in a new manufacturing unit in the next year. Due to recent concerns that the economy may be growing too slowly, the government has unexpectedly announced a decrease in the interest rate. Which of the following concerning the impact of the government decision is true? Is it option A, B, C, or D? Select your answer and give it a submit. You can see a submit button as well. Select yours and give it a submit. Waiting for further more responses to come up. Many of them are going through. Let's have it quick. A minute more. And roughly half of the candidates have attempted it. Waiting for further more responses. Do not forget to click the submit button. Okay, now cannot wait any further. Well, let's have a look at the responses. And yep, the majority of the responses for the third one, the C. And let's see and let's discuss. Now, this company A, the company is planning a major investment in new manufacturing unit the next year. What is happening? The economy is growing too slowly. Government has unexpectedly announced a decrease in the interest rate. Interest rate decreases, our debt is obviously going to the cost of the debt is going to decrease, or the cost of capital is not going to increase, it's going to decrease. So the first option, the company's cost of capital, how do we make it true, is going to decrease. KD has decreased, interest is reduced, the KD will reduce, the cost of capital will reduce, and obviously the shareholders, since the risk-free rate and all those interest rate have reduced, the shareholders' expectation, the shareholders are also going to require lower returns. So it's not the first option. This particular question is going to test your understanding as far as the economic policies are concerned. It's going to test how your decision making through investment appraisal and cost of capital. It's a combination of these things. So it's obviously not the first one. Now, the company shareholder will require lower returns. What about the third one? Demand for the company's product is going to increase. So, what is going to happen is that when the interest rate is low, people tend to take more loan, people tend to spend more, the demand is going to increase, and whereby, yes, good news, whereby what is going to happen? The product company demand is going to, so lower interest rate, spending increases, and the demand increases. The right answer is the third one, demand for the company's product will increase. Now, as far as the last option is concerned, the NPV of the investment will be, no, it will not be lower when you discount with a lower percentage. When you discount with a lower cost of capital, a lower discount factor, your NPV will increase. So, NPV of the investment is supposed to be higher than initially expected. Now, as far as the technical example, the section B is concerned, OT case, this particular question, which is TAMNAC, on the syllabus area risk management, it tested a couple of things. And these were the five requirements. These were the five requirements. In requirement one, the most error that was noticed that most of the candidates, they forget to observe that the requirement was to select two. Many only selected one. And this area was testing about the knowledge in the yield curve. Requirement 5 had also, what is it? Two requirements which was missed out. The first one was on the yield curve. It was testing the knowledge as far as yield curve is concerned. And the candidates did not have proper knowledge about the basis risk. They were not able to state that whether it covers under the underhedge part of it. And with regard to the third requirement, which of the following is correct transfer in relation to FRA, forward rate agreement? Many candidates picked up the wrong percentage, wrong net payment. They've not mentioned the transfer in relation to the FRA. They were only stating the interest with regard to the underlying loan. So there was wrong percentage picked up, wrong net amount that came out. And with regard to the fourth one, how much will Tamanak company expect to receive from the euro 1.5 volume investment? Now here you were supposed to, the money market hedging, and in that money market hedging, wrong, the foreign and the home, there were wrong borrowing and deposit rates were selected, and most of them did not convert it into the respective pro rata interest rate. So if it was for 3 months, you were supposed to divide the interest rate by 12 and then multiply it by 3. If it was for 3 months, you were supposed to divide it by 12 and multiply it by 3. So this was one place where many candidates took the borrowing and the deposit in the wrong countries. The fifth one, which two of the following are true about the over-the-counter interest rate option? So over-the-counter, the OTC, most of the candidates missed to mention out that one of the point with regard to it was the initial premium had to be paid. As far as options are concerned, without the premium we'll not be able to do it, and it is not done on an exchange, but rather it is done on a what is over the counter. What is over the counter is where you directly deal. It is done directly without an exchange. It is rather done with a financial institution, and option will always have what is it the the opportunity to the right to excise or lapse, the right to excise or lapse, the right to excise or lapse. Now, taking you into a video. Hello, here we are on the practice platform with the second question from the March-June 2024 past exam question. This question being called the Elan company. Let's look into the first requirement, requirement A, using a nominal term approach, calculate the NPV of the project and comment on its financial acceptability worth 12 marks. Let's load the NPV. This NPV computation is where many candidates could go wrong in many places. Now let's have a look at all those mistakes as mentioned in the examiner's report. In the working note 1, where we calculate the accommodation and the restaurant revenue, it was noticed that while calculating the total number of rooms, many candidates missed to consider the occupancy rate. Then what certain candidates did is that they took 50 into 50 is the total number of rooms into the occupancy rate, and they did a big mistake here. What is the mistake that is committed here? They've missed to consider 365 days in a year. So the total room nights are supposed to be 50 into 365 into the occupancy rate. This is supposed to be the total room nights. As far as the room rate was concerned, room rate was subject to 6% inflation, which many candidates considered like this from the year 1 onwards, which was again a mistake, which was very clearly specified in the question that the first year room rate is 85 and the inflation is only from the subsequent year onwards. The total room revenue, which is total room nights into the room rate, giving us the total room revenue. Many have missed to consider the restaurant revenue part of total revenue, and the restaurant revenue was 35% of the accommodation revenue. 35% of the accommodation revenue would give the restaurant revenue. Accommodation revenue plus the restaurant revenue gives us the total revenue. With regards to the second working note about the working capital cash flows, which was 5%, the candidates took 5% of the accommodation revenue across for all the 4 years. Now, this is a wrong approach. It is very clearly specified in this scenario that it was supposed to be 5% of the total revenue, not the accommodation. That is accommodation plus restaurant giving us the total revenue. It's a 5% was supposed to be the working capital requirement. Now, these working capital requirement, the second one taking the incremental working capital, which is the second year working capital requirement minus the first year working capital, giving us the incremental working capital, is where many candidates have made mistakes. And the most important thing is having these working capital at the beginning of the year, the placing, the timing of the working capital cash flows is another mistake that is committed by most of the candidates. And many even missed out to fully recover the working capital at the final year of operation. And on the next working note, about the tax savings on tax allowable depreciation. Many candidates wrongly computed the balancing allowance or missed the balancing allowance. And the easiest method to take the balancing allowance and depreciation together in the final year of operation is to the opening balance of the final year, reduce the sale value of the asset from the opening balance, and that would be your depreciation and the balancing allowance in the final year, and take 20 percentage of the tax allowable depreciation and balancing allowance as tax savings on tax allowable depreciation. And do have a working note for calculation of the nominal rate as per the Fisher's formula, which is 1 plus I is equal to 1 plus R into 1 plus H. And then the main part of the NPV calculation, where the variable cost was supposed to be 20% of total revenue. Now, this one is not the right approach. Do mark the variable cost as negative, it's an outflow. And as far as the fixed cost was concerned, it was 433,000. Not like this for all the years. It was 433,000 and subject to an inflation at 4% for the subsequent years into 1.04 for the subsequent years. So this is how the variable and fixed cost calculation was supposed to be presented, where many have committed the mistakes. And finally, the NPV turned out to be positive. How much is the NPV? It's 368,754. Many did miss out the most important final 1 mark comment. And what is the comment? The NPV is positive and is therefore financially acceptable. Well, that's all as far as requirement A of question 2 is concerned. Thank you. Okay. Now, this was this examiner's report from section C has got two constructed response question. Full questions are published on the ACCA practice platform. We've done the second question from it. That question is the Elan company, and the area of the syllabus was investment appraisal, and that question was about NPV, the real terms and nominal, the risk and uncertainty. There was one more question which was uh, Gamgee company. The area of business was business finance. Area of syllabus was business finance, which tested the area of gearing, the one that we saw for which the comments we discussed. It tested on gearing, it tested on interest cover. Many candidates did not know the interest cover formula, they were not able to solve it. There were other ratios. Uh, you had to comment upon the problems of high gearing and Islamic finance. Islamic finance was one of the area where many of the candidates did not go through the five important, they were not prepared at all as far as Islamic finance was concerned. This is where you got five models. You have to not just understand the model, but recommend which model is the most apt or appropriate as far as this scenario is concerned. We've gone through the video of the question number 2, Elan company, where the area of the syllabus was investment appraisal, NPV, the real terms, nominal, risk and uncertainty were discussed over there. Now, in that question, one of the most important thing was you would have seen in the video was the neat NPV layout with workings. Workings for all adjustments. The candidates who've asked in the chat box, they've asked, sir, can we directly, put in the number? No, you cannot put in the number. You've got to show neat working for all the adjustments. Working note, for example, let's say taxation. You've got to identify the rate of tax and the timing of the tax, whether it is in the same year or whether it is in arrears. As far as working capital is concerned, the change of the working capital that is to be placed at the start of the each year. You would have seen in that video there. As far as working note, what were the columns? The fund, the working capital that was required, the incremental working capital, and then we placed all the working capital 1 year in advance. And in the final year, the working capital was fully recovered. So you've got to show the change in the working capital cash flows, that is the incremental cash flows. Final year, do not miss out, even though not mentioned in the question, working capital is assumed to be fully recovered at the end. And inflation, the most important thing, inflation of each cash flows at the appropriate rate. Several times, the question is very clearly going to mention whether you're supposed to put the inflation in the first year or whether the first year cash flow is given and the inflation starts from the second year. So you've got to pick from the question what the right point of time when the inflation happens. And the most important thing, once inflated, it is not the normal rate that you're going to use as discount factor. It is not the real rate. I repeat, it is not the real rate, but rather it is a nominal rate which you are going to use as discount factor. Now, as asked by many candidates, what are the practical advice for tackling the exam? Now, what we've seen from the past exam is that many candidates do not read the requirement first. You've got to have the requirement focus so that when you read the question, first the requirement, the one in the bold color, the one that you see at the end, the requirement bold in color, and then you read the question. And as you read the question, you should search for what the requirement is in the question. Familiarize with the scenario in the question, plan your time carefully. Candidates have the habit, whatever it is the mark, spend time accordingly. Candidates have a habit, okay, some topic, you spend so much time on it, you write so much on it. For 3-mark requirement, you write for 3 mark, not whatever you know. So cut off at the point as per the marks. Plan your answers so that you gain maximum marks. Identify the area where you know better, where you can gain marks easily. Identify what formula is supposed to be used, whether any format or template, like the one that we saw in the previous question. In PV, there was a template. Working capital, working note, there was a proper template. The depreciation, yes, there was a template. Here, opening balance, depreciation, the tax savings on tax allowable depreciation, and if required, maybe the impact here. So present it. So how do you tackle it? Number one, read all the requirement, break it down, put it down in working notes. Then go through the question, familiarize and understand the scenario. Plan your time and do what is easier for you. Gain easy marks first. Once you gain the easy marks, identify the formula that is required, the format, the information that is required, put it across into the template, put it across in a very better presentation. And that's how you should be very easily be able to, tackle the exam as far as you take care of this in the exam hall. Now, the most important thing as far as tackling exam is, getting to know the platform, doing things on the platform, not doing it on an Excel, rather doing it on the practice platform that you have on your MyACCA login. Now, tell me, how many of you practice on the practice platform? Do you not, or often late? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. How is it? Yeah, give me your response. Not just clicking on the response. Press that submit button after it. Give me that submit button. Post that. Yeah, waiting for the responses. Yeah, do not forget to give the submit button. And moving ahead with the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And yeah, there are a lot of candidates who do not use it. Roughly 27% of the candidates don't use it at all. And that is one of the reasons why many are not able to finish. They probably know, there are students who call me after exam and tell me, sir, the question paper was easy, sir, but last one question, sir, I could not do it. Sir, I could not complete. And what is the reason behind it? Yeah, there are a couple of reasons, and one of the reasons is that you've not practiced on the practice platform. Now, big common pitfalls that we've noticed is that you've got to answer what is asked. We've several times seen that when you were asked to comment, you only compute, you only calculate, you stop there, you do not comment. So ensure you answer to what is asked. We've seen that several times when dividend policy theory is asked in exam, the candidates get confused. They write about capital structure theories because we've got traditional theory on both the ends. We have got Modigliani-Miller theory at both the ends. So do ensure that you answer to what is asked. And most important thing is this is not a problem paper. This is not just a computation paper. Preparing, doing more and more and more questions. Many candidates are like, let me do more questions. No, you've got to sharpen yourself conceptually. You've got to work on it like hell, where your concept is clear, where you will be able to, interpret properly. It is not just a computation paper. Let's say roughly around 60% of the mark, 60% of the marks are not computation. 60% of the marks are not on computation. Computation is maybe 40% of the mark. And because you've not worked on your writing, you've only worked on computation, we see that the communication skill, the communication part, the writing skill, the narrative part, my goodness, it is not up to mark. Writing down in bullet points will not fetch you mark. You've got to put it in proper sentences. Avoid unnecessary details. Do not repeat thing again and again. You put one, certain points in one paragraph, you put that again, that is not going to fetch you any marks. So we've seen that tendency of certain candidates to expand. You know something, you read too much for it. You know something, write it as per the marks allotted for it. And just putting across in bullet points, short listing, where you don't put like, the EPS has gone up, the interest cover has gone down. You don't put any justification. You don't put any further explanation. You do not get marks. And you've got to be very careful what verb is used in the requirement. You can see verbs like explain, describe, comment, identify, discuss, critically discuss. Can you tell me probably through the chat box, can you tell me which one of these require you to write more in detail? More in detail. Which one? Is it describe? Is it comment? Is it explain? Is it discuss? Is it critically discuss? Identify? Which are the ones that require more details? Which are the ones that require more details? Yep. The one that requires more detail, the verbs that requires very short sentence would suffice, will help you fetch marks. Those words are identify, describe, comment. The words that require you to put across more details, more things, and that's nothing but what is it? Explain, discuss, or maybe what is it? Critically discuss. How do you improve your exam performance? How do you improve your exam performance? Do it through the practice platform. All those functionalities you need to know, how to navigate, how to flag, maybe how to give that summing it up, and all those functionality, being careful of not to erase your answers off. And please understand, answer all the MCQs. There is no negative marks. There's no negative marks. And one idea, put it across, just describe that. One idea is one mark. It is not quantity. Please note, quality is important. Quality is important. It's not the quantity of it. So it's rather one idea, one mark. It's quality over quantity. Draft very detailed working notes. The ones that you don't know, flag them so that you can come back very quickly you can come back, you can identify where you need to spend more time. So flagging is one of the things that can help you. And in exam, do this thing, easy mark strategy. You find something is, pick those questions that are easy, complete it off, get back to the difficult ones. And do not use bullet points, use full sentences, cover all topics, never think about selective study. There's so many questions that have come up asking, sir, which topic is more important. There is no selective study. Do not cherry pick. And the most important thing is, you go wrong somewhere, do not stop. You would have a feeling is, I've gone wrong in this step, let me stop this, let me move on to the next thing. If you've gone wrong at a point, complete the rest of the answer with that point. Complete the rest of the answer with that point. You are going to get, what is it, marks for the balance steps. You are only going to lose the mark for the point where you've gone wrong. This rule is called as OFR, or rather the own figure rule. So entire marks are not there for the final answer. Marks are there for the subsequent. Now, how do you manage an exam? Sir, how do we do in exam? See, in exam, the time that you're supposed to maintain, the time in order to improve your performance in exam is doing easy things really quick. And this strategy is called as easy mark strategy. You need to write a mock or two with the strategy. The first section here, the first section here, completed it. Yeah, most of the candidates tell me, sir, 1 mark is 1.8 minutes, so we can take accordingly. No, 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 no. That is not the approach. See, there are questions that are pretty easy. You need to do it really quick. Why? Those questions that are slightly more challenging, you can spend more time. So the section A, you've got to complete it in 30 minutes. Those 15 questions in 13 minutes. Section B, where you have got 3 case questions and 3 into 5 questions on each. Again, we have got 15 requirements here. Another 30 minutes completed. So in the first 1 hour, and how do you do it? You read a question, you don't understand, okay, fine. You read it once more, you don't understand. You read it third time, no, you are not supposed to read it the third time. First time you've read it, not understood, okay, fine. Read it maybe one more time, not understood. Do not read it the third time, because the third time, what is going to happen? Your tension, your pressure, you're going to feel more anxiety. So second time you don't get it. That's for what you've got the flagging option. Flag it, move on to the next one. Flag it, keep moving ahead. So do the easy ones. In section C also, pick out the easy requirement. Pick out whatever you can write really quick, mark it. And that one, 30 minutes per question. So which means out of the 180 minutes, the first section A 30 minutes, B another 30 minutes, C 230 minutes, you would be left with 60 minutes balance. This 60 minutes balance, go do the difficult questions. Now trust me, after that 1.5 hour, your tension would have come down, your anxiety would have come down, you would have become more calm. The questions that you felt difficult previous, now you'd be like, Are yaar, why I felt it difficult? Why I did not understand it back then? Now it feels okay. So when you become more calm, you get back, you might be able to manage those challenging questions much easier now. And the balance, 15 minutes, the most important thing is to recheck your answers. Do not leave without rechecking your answer. And if at all any MCQs is still unattempted, please guess the nearest option and move ahead. Please guess the remaining option and move ahead. And this is as far as what is concerned, your easy mark strategy is concerned. Go do a mock, go do a mock, and trust me, follow this. You will be able to get that better feeling when you write exam, because you've attempted all those things that you know, and the rest is which is with the difficult question. Now, yep, on the screen, can I have you to, yeah, do you know when your pre-September mock and debrief release is going to come out? Yep, mark your options. Yes. And on to the Q&A session. Yep. So a lot of questions have come up. Let me slowly pick the questions. You can keep posting your questions. Uh, the question is like this: if we don't show the working, we do put the working into a cell and get the correct answer. Do we get full marks? You will get the mark for the final answer, but for the workings, yes, you would lose your mark for the workings. Is it okay if the working need to be done in the cell, or does each number needs to be? It is okay if the working is done within the cell, but you've got to neatly head your working. Put a heading. Write what working note it is. So put a heading for your working note and then do the working note so that it is evident and clear what working note you've done in the cell. There is no problem in doing it in a cell at all. For the workings, you've got to present it. Another query is uh, how the workings is supposed to be presented. For the workings, probably some of the examples that I can tell you is maybe I'll just, as far as working note, the working capital, the working note, what are the columns that you can use is the year, the working capital that is required, the incremental working capital, and working capital cash flows that are going to come up. To maybe a working note on depreciation, that is you're calculating the tax savings on balance method. It could be year, the opening balance of the asset, the depreciation at whatever rate, maybe let's say 25%, and then what is it, the tax savings on TAD. Required, you can put an impact here as well. Now, picking up a next question. Yeah, as far as, is there any performer as far as WAC is concerned? Is there any performer as far as WAC is concerned? One other question. And as far as WAC is concerned, I will share across one more thing with regard to most of the candidates, they use this formula for WAC, where the value of equity of debt plus what most of the candidates use, or the weight of equity divided by weight of equity plus weight of debt. This one is quite difficult as far as to present inside a spreadsheet is concerned. So when it comes to a spreadsheet, what is recommended is that you can probably use these couple of columns where you put the fund column, a value column, a proposed cost column, and a WAC column. And how are you going to up? Let's say we have equity and we've got debt, and equity is maybe 100 and the debt is 50. So what do we have? We've got 150, and here 100 divided by 150 giving us a proportion of what is it, 0.67, and here 0.3. 3 giving me 1. And let's say the cost of equity is 20 and this one is 10. This will be 3.3. 0.67 into 2 gives me how much? 13.4 plus 3.3 giving me what is it? 16.7. So this would be a better presentation. This would be a better presentation rather than using the formula, because that formula is just going to be in one single cell. Looking at the next Q&A. Oh. Yes, it is. One of the question goes like this. For NPV and IRR calculation, can we use Excel formulas without entering each year's discount factor in the cell and showing it to the marker? Will it be credited? Yes, absolutely. It will be credited. It is absolutely fine to directly use the NPV and the IRR formulas. It is available on the practice platform. You can do it where you use the tool equal to NPV, you open the bracket, you put the percentage, you put a comma, and you're going to select all the cash flows. I mean the cash flows, not the discounted cash flows. The cash flows, you close the bracket, you get the present value, you adjust year zero cash flow to it in order to get the NPV. And the equal to the IRR formula, which goes equal to IRR, you select all the cash flows you select, you close the bracket and do select year zero as well, all the cash flows, and it has to run in a sequence when you select it. Now, looking into the next, there are a lot of questions come up. Let me pick one by one. Mm. Mm. Which are the important areas? The section C is mostly examined from working capital, investment appraisal, business finance. This is section C. But just focusing on section C alone cannot help you clear the exam. It is really important to learn every part of the syllabus. Do not skip the forex part, the risk management, the interest rate part. That is one area where a lot of candidates skip it and it comes in exam, and it is definitely going to be one of the questions that you can expect. In the section B, you can expect one on the risk management. So it is highly recommended not to do any elective preparation, no elective, no selective preparation as far as FM is concerned. Okay, what would be the reason for failing in FM? I've written exam previously and I have not cleared a couple of times. What would be the reasons? There are a couple of reasons why certain candidates do not clear. One thing is that most of the candidates, they do not complete the question paper. There is lack of practice. They do not write easy mark first. Focus on doing easy mark. Stick on to that easy mark strategy. Try out to do it in your exam. Your confidence level can increase. Prepare from all the areas that are specified in the exam, and that can definitely help you clear. Okay, please advise on how to prepare for NPV theory. NPV requirements are mostly at the end. You're going to have comments, and do comment on whether that NPV is positive or negative. Write in the comment that positive NPV projects are going to increase the shareholders' wealth, and conclude whether it should be accepted or rejected. Well, I believe I have addressed for the most of the Q&A come up. Martin, is there anything that you would like to pick up?
Thank you, Rashaad. I think that's the time that we had for the session today. Really appreciate your assistance and your valuable insights there in this session. Thank you so much as well to all the attendees. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for engaging with with us and responding onto the polls and the questions. Just quickly to let you know, I noticed on the poll that most of us weren't aware of the specific dates. So the mocks are already out. You can access the pre-September 24 mocks on the practice platform. The debrief videos will be available starting this Friday, the 16th. So you can spend the time between now and Friday to do the mock, and then you can watch the debrief video thereafter from Friday. And this will be accessible on our YouTube channel as well as the website. We've also shared the link to the examiner's report in the resources tab. Please do have a read through that. It's very important, and that has formed the basis of our discussion today. Also remember that the recording of this session will be available. If you've registered for it, you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to access the recording. So in case you missed on anything, please feel free to look through the recording again. So it's best of luck from us here at ACCA as you prepare for your exams. Wishing you all the success that you deserve. Thank you so much, and goodbye for now.
Wishing you all the best for your upcoming exam, and signing off. Thank you. Bye.